Hello, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're going to be checking out a trio of affordable Xiaomi smartphones. The Redmi Note 12 5G, the Redmi Note 12 Pro 5G, and the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G. The more Pro they get, the more expensive they get. The Redmi Note 12 5G is 279 quid versus its 339 and 449 pound siblings. So are they any good? What's the difference between them all, and which one might be best for you? Well, let's check it out. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so here they are all lined up in price order. The Redmi Note 12 5G, the Redmi Note 12 Pro 5G, and the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus 5G. And yes, at the time I shot this video, almost 200 quid between the cheapest and the most expensive models, so as you would imagine, quite a few differences. Now, looking at them head on, these Redmi smartphones all look very similar and indeed almost identical to most other Android smartphones these days. But there is one major tell, and that's the chin. If you squint down here at the Redmi Note 12 5G, you'll see it's got a bit more Jimmy Hill action compared with its brothers. However, the actual construction is very different, which is immediately apparent when you pick the buggers up. Because you see, the regular Redmi Note 12 5G is constructed from plastic. It's a lot lighter at 190 grams compared with the 210-ish grams Pro and Pro Plus. The pair of more expensive Redmis is actually constructed from Gorilla Glass 5 around back, so it should prove more hardy over time compared with the placky back of the regular model. And as you can see there, the glass models actually have a glossy surface. It is mirrored, so you can do your hair and makeup on your commute if you still have a commute. I'm not a huge fan though, because it does tend to smudge up far too easily. You'll be constantly buffing these things up so they don't look like absolute grease and grime magnets. So my personal preference is for the matte plastic finish actually of the regular Redmi Note 12 5G. Especially as it comes in this lovely forest green colour, although you do have different colour options for the other phones too. And also, while the Redmi Note 12 Pro has a completely flat back, flat edges as well, you've got a curved back on the regular model and the Pro Plus, which just feels a little bit nicer in the hand. You don't have those harsh edges biting into your palm flesh, so yeah, definitely not a massive fan of that. And then all three boast Gorilla Glass up front. You've got the older Gorilla Glass 3 on the Redmi Note 12 5G, whereas on the Pro and the Pro Plus that's upgraded to Gorilla Glass 5. But they all have pre-installed screen protectors as well, and they're all IP53 splash resistant. So now let's have a shufty at the software, and it is the latest MiUI 14 launcher slapped on all three of these Xiaomi smartphones, as you might expect. As you might not expect, however, that is slathered on top of Android 12 rather than the latest Android 13. The actual UI experience is identical on all three of them. You've got the standard Android staples like the Google Discover feed, you've got an apps tray, which unfortunately on all three comes preloaded with all kinds of crapware that you're immediately going to want to ditch, stuff like Facebook and LinkedIn and Booking.com. My old favourite, Tile Fun, which is vastly overselling itself. One of my actual favourites, good old Control Center, which you can drag down from the right side of the screen. Very handy, loaded with toggles and useful features. And then dive on into the settings menus. Is basically the same setup on all three of these phones as well. You got the same extra bonus bits, the same customization options, the same always on display that isn't actually an always on display. It just pops up when you tap the screen, and thereby the very definition of a not always on display. Although because of the more basic performance, the Redmi Note 12 5G has had to cull a couple of features you will find on its more expensive, more premium brothers. The likes of the Quick Ball, for instance, which I never really use anyway. And if you like your PUBGs or whatever, you'll be disappointed that there's no game turbo mode here, adding all kinds of in-game features. And while Xiaomi is now rightly offering years of support for its flagship smartphones, unfortunately these Redmi buggers are getting left behind a bit. So not only are they still languishing on Android 12, but at the most you can probably expect a couple of years of OS and security updates. Hopefully they'll get Android 13 soon. Hopefully it won't take another couple of years to get Android 14, but we'll have to wait and see. For your storage needs, you've got a choice of 128 or 256 gigabytes on the Redmi Note 12 and the Redmi Note 12 Pro. I believe the Pro Plus is 256 only. Of course, that may well differ depending on where you actually live in the world. And if you fancy expanding that storage at all, well, no luck on the Pro and Pro Plus. There's no memory card support there, but the regular Redmi Note 12 5G does actually take a micro SD memory card. That will, however, eat up that second SIM slot. And all three of these Redmi phones can take two physical SIMs at the same time. They've got 5G support across both of those SIM slots. And the Pro and the Pro Plus also support a good bit of Wi-Fi 6. It's the same security setup in all three of these as well. You've got an edge-mounted fingerprint sensor rather than an in-display optical effort. So far seems pretty responsive. Occasionally it'll take a couple of taps, but more often than not just the one and you're in. And you've got the usual face unlock shenanigans as well, although that's not quite as secure. And good news for media fans, because all three of these Redmi Note 12 blowers sport a 6.67-inch AMOLED display. Slightly different tech, it is a dot display on the Note 12 5G and a flow display on the Pro and Pro Plus. The main difference is that the Pro models have Dolby Vision certification, but to be honest, the contrast is still perfectly good on the regular Note 12 5G. Nice deep blacks, nice crisp whites, and poppy colours in all three as well. They all spaff full HD plus visuals at your face, so plenty of detail packed into every frame. And the Redmi Note 12 5G is actually slightly brighter than its siblings at 1200 nits max compared with 900 nits. So slightly better outdoor visibility, and all three Redmi phones also max out at 120Hz refresh for your supported apps. And all is not equal when it comes to the audio either. You've got stereo speakers on the Redmi Note 12 Pro and the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus, but it's just a mono speaker on the regular model. But the good news is you've got a headphone jack on all three of these blowers, absolutely marvelous stuff, and also of course your Bluetooth 5.1 streaming here on the Redmi Note 12, upgraded to Bluetooth 5.2 on the Pro and Pro Plus. And you've also got Dolby Atmos tuning on the Pro models, something that's missing again from the cheaper version. And the cheaper Redmi Note 12 is also powered by a completely different chipset to its siblings. That's powered by a Snapdragon 4 Gen 1, which is comparable to the Snapdragon 695, which is packed into all kinds of budget and mid-range blowers last year. And in comparison, the Pro and the Pro Plus are powered by MediaTek's Dimensity 1080. So as you can see, unsurprisingly similar results on the Redmi Note 12 Pro and Pro Plus. Unfortunately, regular Redmi Note 12 5G not quite as capable, although it's still absolutely fine for your everyday shenanigans, your messaging, your web browsing, your media streaming, all that good stuff. And it can actually play the likes of Genshin Impact, albeit on the lowest graphics settings and not with the smoothest frame rate. So if you are a gamer, I would recommend upgrading to either the Redmi Note 12 Pro or that Pro Plus if you're extra minted. Both the Pro and Pro Plus support Game Turbo, as I mentioned before, which can be swiped out at any point to toggle the likes of Do Not Disturb, the auto brightness. You've also got a boost mode on there. And with this active, I found that Genshin Impact played with a pretty fluid frame rate, even on the highest graphics settings. The occasional wee judder and drop in frames here and there, but very, very playable indeed, even with those lush visuals enabled. And no worries if you want to kill a good hour or two with a bit of Genshin Impact or PUBG or whatever else, because none of these smartphones got hot under the collar, even under serious duress. But what about the battery life? Well, it's all square on this front. You've got a 5000 mAh capacity cell crammed into all three of these Redmi Note 12 phones. The Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus has seen me through a full day, no worries, with plenty of screen on time, so you should get exactly the same out of the other two. They all seem to drain at a very similar rate when you are streaming a bit of media or of course gaming on Genshin. They do all charge up at different speeds, however. You've got 33 watt fast charging on the Redmi Note 12 5G. That's upgraded to 67 watt turbo charging on the Pro and 120 watt hypercharge on the Pro Plus. And I'll get you fully charged from completely drained in around 20 minutes, as long as your power supply can handle it. Although there is no wireless charging on any of these handsets. Now things get rather complicated when it comes to the camera tech. Different sensors on all three. You've got a 48 meg, possibly an OmniVision effort on the Redmi Note 12. That's upgraded to a 50 meg Sony IMX766 with optical image stabilization on the Pro. And then that's boosted again to a 200 meg Samsung HPX effort, again with OIS, on the Pro Plus. You essentially get the same camera app on all three, however, packed with all of the same features, including the good old reliable AI mode, which can determine what you're trying to take a snap of and then tweak the settings on your behalf. You got filters to piddle about with, timers, you can change up the aspect ratio. When it comes to the photo quality, well, here's some side-by-side samples I took on all three. They'll all do the job in a well-lit scenario. Even the regular Redmi Note 12 doesn't struggle too much with HDR-style situations. The Redmi Note 12 Pro with that dependable IMX766 is definitely a step up though. And then when it comes to low light scenarios, that is where the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus really steps in with that 200 megapixel sensor. That pixel binning technology really brightening up your snaps even when the light is in scarce supply, so you get impressive levels of detail and tonal accuracy. So if you do find yourself out on the town a lot in the evenings, you'll definitely want to consider that Pro Plus. And of course the fact you've got the image stabilization on the Pro and the Pro Plus really helps out with those low light shots as well. And yeah, you got all the usual bonus camera modes packed on all three of these phones, including the portrait mode, complete with customizable bokeh action on the Pro and Pro Plus. If we jump into the more section, the Redmi Note 12 5G does have less options than the Pro versions, but you're only losing a couple of bits like the vlog mode and of course the long exposure mode, as you don't have the optical image stabilization. If you like to shoot lots of home movies on your smartphone, well, again, you might want to look at the Pro models as they top off at 4K resolution at 30 FPS. You've also got 1080p at 60 FPS option, whereas the regular bog standard Redmi Note 12 5G tops off at 1080p 30 FPS. And that regular Redmi Note 12 is fine for shooting simple, short, shareable clips as long as, again, the lighting isn't balls. But it's certainly the Pro models that do really, really well here, shooting some nice looking video, especially for this sort of price point. Respectable image stabilization, clear audio capture, the works. As for the other two lenses, well, they're identical on all three of these smartphones. You've got a basic 8 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter, which is good if you just want to fit a little bit more into frame, and a bog standard 2 megapixel macro lens, which is frankly pointless. And as for those front facing selfie cams, well, it is slightly different tech again. It's a 13 meg shooter on the Redmi Note 12 that gets upgraded to a 16 mega here on the Pro and Pro Plus. But all three do an okay job, even when the lighting is a bit dim or when you've got a really bright background to contend with, it's not too shabby. And that right there, my lovelies, is my full Redmi Note 12 versus 12 Pro versus 12 Pro Plus comparison. As you can see, it is a big jump up from the 12 5G to the 12 Pro 5G. The Pro and the Pro Plus, very similar DNA, but of course, if you want that 200 megapixel Billy Big Bollocks camera tech, well, you're gonna have to pay out that extra cash. Otherwise, the IMX766 on the regular Pro is as dependable as ever, so certainly if you are into your photos and your home movies and everything, it'll do a job. So be great to hear your thoughts down below. Are you tempted by any of this trio, and if so, which one? Please do poke, subscribe, and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, yada yada yada, and have yourselves a ruddy wonderful rest of the week. Cheers!